According to The Guardian, the narrative surrounding the conflict in Gaza has traditionally been heavily influenced by the Israel Defense Forces, IDF, and the country's Ministry of Defense. Despite the international criticism and damage to Israel's reputation due to the deaths of Palestinians and the extensive destruction in Gaza, the IDF has maintained a narrative portraying a severely weakened Hamas. Even in the face of such criticism, the IDF has been able to present a plausible storyline, asserting that the military operations in northern Gaza were largely completed successfully. The narrative also suggested that the IDF anticipated similar success in southern Gaza in the near future. This control over the narrative allowed Israel to shape perceptions of the conflict, emphasizing its military achievements and downplaying the impact on civilian populations. However, it's essential to recognize that public opinions on the matter may vary, and alternative perspectives may present a different interpretation of events. The dominance of the Israeli narrative in the Gaza conflict was further reinforced by the challenging conditions faced by journalists attempting to report from within Gaza. The limited number of journalists operating in the region faced severe difficulties, not only due to the inherent dangers associated with covering an active conflict zone, but also due to restrictions imposed by the authorities. The risk to the personal safety of journalists operating in Gaza created a formidable barrier, deterring them from independently verifying information or presenting alternative perspectives. With their movements restricted and safety at stake, journalists face challenges in delivering comprehensive, unbiased coverage of the events unfolding in Gaza. Meanwhile, the International Press Corps, largely stationed in Jerusalem, found themselves heavily dependent on IDF sources for much of their information. This dependence on IDF sources potentially contributed to a narrative that aligned with the Israeli perspective, as the information available to the international media was filtered through the lens of the Israeli military. The difficulty in accessing and reporting from Gaza allowed the IDF to maintain control over the narrative, shaping the global understanding of the conflict in a way that may have downplayed certain aspects or highlighted specific achievements. The evolving situation in Gaza began to challenge the initial narrative presented by the IDF. Contradictions emerged, weakening the credibility of certain claims. First, there was a lack of evidence to support the IDF's assertion of a Hamas headquarters under Al-Shifa Hospital. This raised doubts about the accuracy of the information provided by the IDF and fueled skepticism about the justification for certain military actions. Additionally, the IDF's inability to identify the location of Israeli hostages, despite possessing advanced intelligence capabilities, further eroded confidence in the narrative they had been presenting. This highlighted a discrepancy between the IDF's claims and their ability to substantiate critical details, prompting increased scrutiny from the international community and media. The IDF's strategy in Gaza appears to align with the well-established Dahiya doctrine, characterized by the use of overwhelming force in response to irregular warfare. This approach aims to cause extensive social and economic damage, thereby undermining the will of insurgents to continue fighting and deterring future threats to Israel's security. However, recent developments suggest that this strategy is facing challenges and generating criticism from unexpected quarters. Notably, criticism has surfaced from sources such as former UK Defense Minister Ben Wallace, who has expressed concerns about the lasting impact of the current conflict, warning of repercussions that could span as long as 50 years. This criticism implies a growing awareness of the potential long-term consequences of the military actions taken by the IDF, not only in terms of immediate human and infrastructural costs, but also in terms of the enduring societal and geopolitical ramifications. Even the Biden administration, typically an ally of Israel, is reportedly expressing unease with the unfolding events. This uneasiness suggests a divergence in perspectives and highlights the complexities of the situation, which may be straining traditionally strong alliances. Despite criticism and unease from various quarters, including unexpected sources, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the War Cabinet seem determined to persist with the current military campaign. The Israeli government's response, as led by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, needs to be understood in the context of the profound impact of the 7th of October attacks. The brutality and severity of these attacks struck at the very core of Israel's assumptions about its security. In the face of such a direct threat, the majority of Israeli Jews have, until now, continued to support Netanyahu's response. The gravity of the security threat has been a key factor in maintaining public backing for the government's actions. The fear and vulnerability evoked by the attacks have created an environment where many Israelis see a robust and forceful response as necessary for safeguarding their security and deterring future threats. This sentiment has, to a large extent, underpinned the resilience of support for the military campaign led by the IDF. However, even within this context, there are signs that the level of public support is beginning to fray. The elimination of the 3 hostages by IDF troops appears to be a turning point, introducing a new layer of complexity and controversy to the ongoing conflict. Such incidents can erode public trust and support, especially when there are questions or concerns about the conduct of the military and the impact on civilian lives. The mounting pressure on IDF commanders to succeed in the conflict, coupled with their recognition of the limits of military force against Hamas, underscores a challenging dynamic. These commanders, often highly intelligent and single-minded individuals, operate within the parameters set by the War Cabinet. While they may push the military campaign to its limits, there's an increasing awareness that Hamas's ideology and influence cannot be entirely eradicated through military means alone. They are also aware that ongoing negotiations are encountering obstacles, and the pressure from hostage families may lead to another humanitarian pause soon. Consequently, their objective is to inflict as much damage on Hamas as swiftly as possible, regardless of the cost to Palestinians. The ability for Netanyahu to pursue such a strategy is facilitated by his reliance on an extremist minority within his government, composed of religious fundamentalists and staunch Zionists. This faction, which might not enjoy broad support in Israel under normal circumstances, has gained traction due to the tragic events of 7 October. However, their influence is proving detrimental to Israel's long-term security. The increasing alignment with this minority group not only risks isolating Israel on the international stage, even among its traditional allies, but it also has the potential to generate a lasting wave of radical opposition. The actions taken by the government, driven by this faction, may contribute to the perception of Israel as a pariah state. In addition, there is a chance that escalating the war and making life more difficult for Palestinians would incite a new wave of radicalized opposition, which could eventually lead to the resurgence of Hamas or something else entirely. Beyond just short-term security issues, these policies may have long-term effects on Israel's international status and prolong regional war cycles. The prospect of salvaging the situation in Israel largely hinges on external intervention, with a critical role falling on the shoulders of Joe Biden and his administration. The key lies not only in recognizing the urgency of the matter, but also in responding to the evolving public sentiment in Western Europe. The Biden administration, urged on by the shifting public mood, must acknowledge its responsibility to bring about an immediate end to the conflict. The United States and other international countries can exert significant influence throughout events. It is imperative that Biden and his advisors evaluate the current state of affairs in Israel through a comprehensive comprehension of the regional dynamics and the wider ramifications for stability and peace. In Western Europe, where public opinion is changing quickly, a more proactive diplomatic posture may be prompted by these shifting attitudes. The current situation in Israel is quite complicated, with the country's leadership stating that it is involved in a multi-front war. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant recently addressed the Knesset, listing 7 theaters where Israel is facing challenges: Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, Iraq, Yemen, and Iran. In Gaza, Israel is dealing with ongoing conflicts with Palestinian militant groups like Hamas, resulting in sporadic violence and military engagements. Lebanon poses a threat due to the presence of Hezbollah, a militant group with a history of hostility towards Israel. The civil war in Syria has created a challenging environment for Israel, with regional powers involved in the conflict. Tensions persist in the West Bank between Israelis and Palestinians. The mention of Iraq suggests broader regional implications, possibly referring to the influence of various actors in the country. Yemen, in the midst of its own conflict, may indirectly affect Israel's interests. The inclusion of Iran is significant, given the long-standing animosity between the two countries and Iran's influence in the region through support for militant groups and alliances. The prospect of a wider and seemingly endless war with Israel deliberately engaging Tehran's proxies across multiple fronts, raises concerns about the potential for a protracted and far-reaching conflict in the Middle East. At the core of this complex situation is Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's frequently expressed and implicitly threatened ambition to confront the Iranian regime directly. Netanyahu has long sought to settle scores with what he views as Israel's most formidable adversary, and the current volatile landscape could offer a pathway to realizing this ambition. Netanyahu has previously sought support from influential allies, notably from the former U.S. President Donald Trump, in pursuit of his confrontational approach towards Iran. The possibility of a wider war without end suggests a strategic shift where Netanyahu, if successful, could solidify his political survival amidst the chaos, even as the broader consequences of the conflict impact countless lives. If Netanyahu achieves his objectives, the situation may indeed escalate, with Gaza serving as only the initial battleground. The reference to survival in the context of Netanyahu suggests that, in pursuing his goals, he might be willing to endure the hardships and uncertainties of a prolonged conflict, while others may not be as fortunate. The potential consequences of such a strategy are far-reaching, both for the stability of the region and the broader international geopolitical landscape. The stakes are high, and the outcome of this strategic gamble could have profound and lasting implications for the Middle East and beyond. Thank you for watching our video. Do you think Israel is losing the war with Palestine? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. Remember to hit the notification bell for more videos.